Welcome to the Indian Sun. I'm joined by Mr. Mouli Ganguly, an IIT Kharagpur, and I'm IIM Ahmedabad alumnus turned filmmaker. He stars in the latest Melbourne production, My Melbourne, which was premiered as the opening film for the Indian Film Festival of Melbourne. We'll dive into that and much more. Welcome, Mr. Ganguly. Clearly, you've had an interest in the arts right from school, and in Melbourne, you've done over 50 projects. It's interesting that you didn't become a full-time actor or dramatist. Tell me more about your beginning and how you got into the arts.
Thank you, Indira, and hello to your viewers and the audience. So I think I can't quite remember when I did it. Probably people will call me a drama queen from the time I was born. But I think from the age of 5 or 6, I was performing. And then when we went to school, we went to a school which really believed in total development of your personality. So we were doing plays and elocutions and debates and things like that from a very early stage, like primary school days.
Mm.
And then that evolved into secondary school days, where I was very fortunate that there were teachers and there were a couple of people who we worked with. And they all ended up becoming absolute stalwarts in the Calcutta and Bengali, both the theater and cinema world, but I didn't have their courage of pursuing that full time, though I wanted to. So I went into a different field.
But of course, growing up in Kolkata would have had a great influence because it is the cradle of the creative arts, as you see yourself, isn't it?
We are all absolutely, in our heart is brimming with the desire to express ourselves in a cultural manner, but also where we touch other people, where we do good for other people. So that is an essential part of existence almost.
I want to know which year you arrived in Australia, because it was in 1986 that you directed and acted in the first Bengali language full-length play in Melbourne, isn't it?
That is absolutely right. So I arrived in 1983, and the quick history to that is after my school days, when I was in those two esteemed institutions, IIT Kharagpur and Ahmedabad. In IIT Kharagpur, they actually threatened to give me a degree in dramatics, not in technology. Because we had fantastic facilities. Our Tagore Open Air Theatre, believe it or not, had a 6,000 plus capacity. And the facilities, wow, to die for. So we were doing all kinds of very big plays, very complex plays. We had the architectural faculty, we had civil faculty. So everything that you can dream of in a today's modern film set or Opera Australia sets or a big theater stage was all at hand. And fantastic technical people, planners, musicians, everything. So that was, I went all around India, participated in competitions, and the perfection. I remember there was a Urdu play we were doing, and for every day, for 2 hours, I had to speak in pure chest Urdu because we were going to perform in Lucknow. For 1 hour, 5 to 6, my next door neighbor, who also happened to be a very pure chest Urdu speaker, we are practicing things like Khwahish and Khwahish. Just the difference between the two. And the Bengali tongue and Urdu tongue are mutually exclusive, I think. So look, they were great days. And the other thing is, in Ahmedabad, we did Mrityakotik. Mrityakotik it is a 5,000, it was done in 3 to 5,000 year BC. It's a Sanskrit play, but it is called the Mahanatak. It is the mother of all plays. So that was the first play, I think, in 1700 something, got introduced the wealth of Indian Natya Shastra to the West. And first play also translated in French, in fact, and performed in Paris. Whoa. So again, we are very fortunate because Ahmedabad was a very small place. And we are working with the people of National Institute of Design and things like that. And again, wow, it was so good. I didn't act, I just directed, but it was just amazing. So look, all that brought me here.
Mm.
And we were a very small community then. So in 1983, I came, and I was very fortunate that in 1984, one of the largest ethnic communities were set up out here called Bengali Association of Victoria. And that was all about establishing your identity.
Mm.
So because there are 100 odd families. So he
Mm.
said, all right, we will do a play.
Mm.
So I said, yeah, oh yeah, beautiful. We'll do a play. Now for a play, you need actors, you need other things. So I was happy. So I ended up happening to both direct and play the main role, which was a flim-flam person's role, but very, very challenging role.
Mm.
So we did all of that. And Kenaram and Becharam, I actually do dual roles. And all the actors were never acted before. But I think that was a very good production in there. Everybody memorized their lines, nothing slipped up.
Mm.
And that whole impact of that play suddenly brought the community together. So I think in the early days, plays were mostly commercial plays that were fun. There were a couple of Tagore plays which were very, very powerful, iconic plays. But it did a fantastic role for
So
bringing
what was the name of that first play, and sort of what were the challenges in bringing that to a new cultural context?
So the name of that play was Kenaram Becharam. In fact, as it so happened, it has been staged twice in Melbourne, and later on it also became a movie. But the challenges are very important. The first is nobody had any idea of what the stage meant, to be on stage, to act on stage. A theater is not about saying your lines. A theater is like we are interacting. It's a very natural, normal interaction. So you have to get into a character. So there's a method called Tchaikovsky's method, which lets you get into the character. You become the character. When you are on stage, you have to become that other person. But that is the biggest joy, that you suddenly become another person. There is no constraint on you. You can say, do whatever you want the person that you're playing is supposed to do. To get people, and we are not doing any of the formal processes like workshops, etc., that I was used to in a normal way. So it was very informal at one level, but we needed to, I think, and I was very young in those days. I was, I think, 24. So I was about 27, I think. And all these other guys were much older than me, right? So I had to give them confidence, if you know what I mean. I had to make them believe that they could do it. And once they got into the roles, once they understand what we wanted, wow. The biggest joy was when it was coming together. Everybody was working as a team. That energy that it creates.
Yes.
As a whole lot of different kinds of people coming together. That's amazing. The only regret I have is I've never been a hoard. I never kept record of all these things. So,
yes. So you haven't saved anything for posterity. I want to ask you about the world premiere of My Melbourne at the Indian Film Festival of Melbourne, and what does this project mean to you personally, and how do you see it contributing to the conversation about migrant experience in Australia?
I think it is difficult to express, but let me start off with the migrant experience. Okay, so I started off with Bengali plays. From 2012, 13, 29 onwards, I started writing, directing, and also acting in plays that merged languages. So they became also about stories, because by that stage, the Indian diaspora had grown quite a bit. And it's not just the Indian diaspora, there are other diasporas that we're intersecting with, not the mainstream Australian diaspora. So I started writing plays and acting them on with professional people on stage primarily. For example, the first one we did was basically a story around Indian couple which has come out here. Their daughter is now grown up to be a doctor, and all her friends are Australian. Now, she meets this guy who is an Indian, and his mother is in India. So therefore, the story develops, and we mix. I co-wrote that with a very well-known Australian playwright, and unfortunately, we couldn't find the guy to play the father. So I ended up playing the role of the father. Now, that the Melbourne City Council funded us to the extent of $35,000, I think, or thereabouts. So we did 5 shows in the Meat House. So the multicultural journey started almost 25 years since the time I arrived, because then the community was growing. And then everything we have done is multicultural. So, for example, if you look at one of the things about multiculturalism is women's empowerment. So we did a play again around Sister Nivedita and Swami Vivekananda, one of the almost like a founders of modern India. And the basic context of the play is that Vivekananda had a saying that a bird to fly properly needs 2 wings. A nation to prosper needs the men and women of the nation to work together as equals. So this was being said in 1890s, right? And in those days, women child, like even if you were there in 1890s, you probably wouldn't have sent to school. Your brothers would be sent to school. That was where India was. So he realized to make that change, he needed a change agent. So he brought in Margaret Noble to be that change. And it is just an amazing story. So it was we made it into a 2.5-hour musical with live music, and we fused everything. So everything was fused together in a multicultural production. And that went on to doing other plays that I was primarily doing, but using cinematic techniques.
Okay.
So that, and in between, he did some films which will come back to later on. But My Melbourne, the first instance is, if you look at the story, it is very much about inclusivity. If you look at My Melbourne as a whole, right, there are 4 themes: sexuality, gender, disability, and race. What it mixed is 4 very different diasporas and 4 very different themes. And how it was, I mean, just the vision of Nitu Bhaumik Long, he was the producer, and basically, I think with the other key directors, the vision that she had to bring it to reality was amazing. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, that's okay. I just wanted you to elaborate on your role in My Melbourne.
Okay. So can I say one word about the other 3 and then come to this?
Yes.
Okay. So the first one, which I'll talk about more, is a father coming from India and a son in Australia. The son is a same-sex relationship with his Australian partner, and the father simply couldn't accept it. So there's a total disaffection. So the mother has passed away, and the father didn't allow the son to go and visit her. Now, after some years, he is coming back to meet with him and perform some of the rites. Okay, so what happens there? So that's one story: India, Australia, father, son, very clear. Second story is about a young Indian. So this was directed by Onid, and I played the role of the father, one of the main roles. The second story is about an Indian girl who comes out here. She is going through the struggles that a lot of migrants go through. So she works as a kitchen hand, but basically in India, she has let out the story that she runs a manager. She's in a happy marriage. There are some issues in the marriage. And then she comes across an Australian woman who is sort of down and out, and that improbable relationship, which looks quite cathartic, suddenly they connect and it evolves. So that's the story of the second story. And that was directed by Imtiaz Ali. In that role, I played a cameo. I was sort of the continuity in some of these things, which I think was, I do not know whether that was initially meant, but I think I'm very grateful to the directors and Bitu to give me that opportunity. Is that I sit one of the key scenes that happens in a train. So the two main lead are sitting on 2 ends of a tram seat, and I'm sitting in the tram seat behind them. So I'm not saying anything or doing anything, but whatever they're doing, it is I'm the witness, if that makes sense.
Mm.
So that was that. The third role is third movie directed by Rima Das is that of
Emma,
Emma. That was a young woman
with disability.
who is deaf, correct, and has got other disabilities developing, but she absolutely wants to dance, and how takes that impossible challenge
Mm.
and achieves that.
Mm.
So that's Emma.
Mm.
And the fourth story is directed by Kabir Khan.
Mm.
And that story is basically that of an Afghan woman who has come back out here. She was on the cusp of selection in the Afghan national team, national cricket team, but she's now here. Her father is back there, and her father actually always encouraged her to do the best that he can, that she can, and without being held down by the difficulties that people face in their lives. And her mother was a Supreme Court judge there. But here she's, so that's her story. And in the end, cricket gives her a way out and a way of totally
So how was
accepting the beautiful life.
Yeah. How was it like working with Onir?
Look, I think first and foremost thing that I'll say is Onir is just an amazing, beautiful person. When we started, I think it was very difficult, but he made me understand the key differences between theatrical acting and acting in a movie, which is in theatrical acting, you project when you do it, because the last few years, all these other films that I've done, they were done without a mic, right? So you had to reach the last person in the audience. So you project. Here, you take everything in. And that process is so difficult. So, I mean, I also had the chance to work with Imtiaz Ali in the other film. But to me, I think a lot of positive things I think have been said about my role since that day. But I ascribe everything to two people. One is to Onir. So I think it's difficult for me to dissect it down, but he's such a perceptive actor. And when I got to know him, we're almost like friends. He's such a nice person.
Now you've worked on such a wide range, productions in Bengali, Hindi, English, with various art forms like music, dance as well. Now, how do you approach blending these different elements to create a cohesive, multicultural experience in your work? You mentioned spirituality. Is that where it comes in?
I think absolutely. So, see, the couple of aspects about spirituality. Spirituality believes in human brotherhood. So it says that we are all people. There is, at some level, there is no difference. So that last big play that I did, and Achalayaton, Tagore, it's an iconic play of Tagore, and he used to play that role, the role of Dada Thakur. So he has a line. He says in a very dramatic part, where there's a battle being staged, and he says to the other side, opposite side, that you can strike me, but you cannot hurt me. So what it means is that you can strike me as the body, as me as an entity, but you can't hurt me because I own that power to be hurt or otherwise. Now, when you have that, then you say, I can take on a challenge. Okay, I don't know anything about singing. I don't know anything about dancing. I can be a klutz, but then I'll have other people around me who are beautiful dancers, beautiful composers, who are beautiful choreographers. And then, stop not till your goal is reached. Somehow or the other, there is that force that guides you. And that force will come and put everything together. And really, that's what happens. And multiculturalism is an expression of that. It is really a celebration of humanity. And you'll probably ask me the question later. When we did, we did a sort of a masterclass around creating business capabilities within creative people under the auspices of TIE. And the point is that and it was kicked off by Meera Nair, who is obviously in terms of
Yes.
multicultural program.
I
And the
I
theme
was
is,
going to ask you that question with your experience of working with Meera Nair on that project, but now that you're touching upon that, please elaborate as you go.
may I just finish this
Yeah.
part and then I'll come lead to that. Then that's a nice segue.
Yeah.
So, and the point is, it is an expression of the universal brotherhood and where Australia is today. That is the power of multiculturalism. So she gave an example out there. I'll start off with the example. In our first movie, the DOP is the director of photography, was Australian. She said that, look, if I try to get that same person now, I'll probably not be able to afford him. But then he was small and I was starting off. And so the point that he was making is, Australia is a small country, but the amount of creative skill that is here, particularly in the Indian diaspora, as well as the Australian diaspora and other diaspora, is amazing because of the nature of and multiculturalism drives that. So, and spirituality is how should I put it, it is the font from which it all evolves. So, going back to your question about Meera Nair, so TIE is world's largest entrepreneurial organization, and I was fortunate enough to be the founder of that along with many other people in early 2000s. And it promotes entrepreneurialism and it provides all the services are free. We mentor and do like that. I've done all of that as part of my community giving. So this was done as a creative theme, and most of the people were from Australian Indian background. And the issue is that I've got a note, if I just refer to that would be easier. She said some amazing things because she took the example of a very famous film of hers called Monsoon Wedding, which she said was made in the cost of a oily rag, and she explained how she just tided over difficulties, and it was a super success worldwide. Right? Now, she said, spin the world. You just have to that belief that something will happen. It will be good. Second is collaborate. Just work with others. This is not about any individual. Just collaborate and everybody will contribute. That's the beauty about art. Have a shared vision and team moral. And the other interesting thing that she said, there are a few others, develop resilience for dealing with creative rejection. See, if you're in business, there is a certain path, which is the other part of me that you follow, right? But here, you will keep getting rejected. But don't give up. Stop not till the goal is reached.
Yeah.
And the other thing he said is pass on and help others. So it is not about an individual. It is about what you can contribute and give back to the community.
Yeah, some true good learnings there. One question which I had was this, from 1986 to now, obviously we've seen the growth of more and more, multicultural projects in the arts and theatre scene. But how has it changed? Today there's so many of them, but can you shed some light on that?
Sure. Look, 1986, an imagery strikes me when I had come to Australia. So I think Australia was going to India to play test series. So the front page picture was an elephant working down in Delhi. And basically that was the context in which India was seen. And therefore anything that we were doing, multiculturalism was just coming in forward. It was just the word terminology was coming in forward. And now if you meet at somebody like the chair of the Victorian Multicultural Council, Vivian, you can see how far it has come, the overall context.
Yeah.
Now, in a very practical context, in those days, we could not imagine anybody other than the small cloister of 100-odd Bengalis coming in for the play, right? We were doing the play, we were watching the play, we were all within ourselves. Fast forward 2024. The Australian government in the parliament is facilitating me too and a couple of other doyens of Indian film industry to celebrate 15 years of Indian Film Festival of Melbourne, which is one of the biggest festivals.
Yeah.
It
And what a
is
great
just,
lead.
I'll
Yeah.
give you another, sorry.
No,
I was
no.
going to give you another example which came yesterday,
Yeah.
which was just, may I?
Yeah, please.
So there was this show, what is the spelling bee? Roy Mont, I think.
Oh, yes,
Spelling bee in
yeah.
ABC iView.
Yeah.
So there were 4 comics that were doing the spelling bee. 2 were very well-known Australian comic. One was a Sri Lankan comic, and the 4th one was Urvi Mazumdar, who is again a Bengali comic who is brought up out here and is doing stand-ups. So just think of it, 2 out of 4, not bad.
Yeah.
In 20 years back,
Yeah.
there would have been none
Yeah.
out of 4. I can guarantee you, Indira.
So really it's been a great journey in that sense, isn't it? Looking forward, what are your aspirations for your work in film and theater?
Firstly, I think I may not work so much in the theater. I've basically made a decision that in life you can do only that many things. You can have them as interest, like for over 40 years when I was in business, theater, other things were an interest. Now, this is going to be my passion. I'm going to pursue my passion. So then pursuing my passion would be films, primarily acting. Hopefully, there will be other meaningful big projects where I will get the chance to work in. What they are, I've got no idea because, again, it is, I mean, whichever divine force has brought me to this point. 2 years back, if you asked me, would you be doing my Melbourne? Would Indira be wanting to interview you on a Thursday afternoon? I should say, go away. Why would you, right? But this is true. I mean, and that film was made. So who knows what happens tomorrow? But I'm really excited by what could happen. And if I get the opportunities, I'll try to do my best and see what happens. But if nothing else, what has happened is just absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
I'm very grateful for that.
I know. That's true. Thank you so much, Mr. Ganguly. It was a pleasure talking to you.